council clock stands at 6 o'clock at Castlewood, so we will now commence the meeting. There is a chairman's introduction. I'm sorry it will take some time to read it. It really should have a title. It's either a rant by David or a book by Boris. You can make your own choice. I welcome everyone to this virtual meeting of the council. There are a few procedural matters to deal with first. The meeting is held under the virtual meetings regulations, and decisions made by the council will have the same standing and validity as if they had made at a physical meeting in the town hall. We are streaming today's meeting on the internet, and a recorded version will be available to view within 48 hours on the North Somerset Council website. The meeting etiquette we've previously circulated and we used before. Please remember to use your headphones, as this will improve the sound quality for everyone. Will you please ensure that your audio is muted when you are not speaking?
My name is Councillor Ruth Jacobs.
Is now joining.
Joining by telephone, please could you also mute your phones when not speaking?
Councillor Anne Harley, by phone.
As that will reduce background noise.
Yeah. Oh, I'm in.
You can mute mobiles or landlines by pressing, it says *6. When you wish to speak, please use the chat function. And it is easier to monitor requests if you're speaking from a single source.
Excuse me, Chairman. Sorry,
Queue system, which the clerk will manage. If you are leaving the meeting or returning to the meeting, would you please ensure that I am aware of this by using the chat function. This is paramount in respect of any disclosable pecuniary interests, where you are not permitted to participate in the agenda by law. Pecuniary interest, you immediately leave the meeting. It will be confirmed by an officer that you have left. Voting. When proposing a motion, would you please indicate via the chat function that you wish to speak and wait until I invite you to do so. Please then clearly state what you are moving. If you are seconding a motion, please again clearly indicate you wish to speak via the chat function. Wait for me to call you. At this meeting, voting will generally be by roll call. The solicitor will call each council in turn by name and in alphabetical order. You state for or against or abstain. Please remember to turn on your microphone when voting and mute it when you have spoken. If you have not heard the full debate, and this is important, please state so and your vote will be marked abstain. This would ensure that the vote is accurately recorded and would enable members of the public to properly observe the vote. At the chairman's discretion, voting on procedural matters will be done in reverse order and en bloc, as we have done previously. Before I move to the agenda, are there any questions from councillors? Can all members hear? A bit late to ask that question, but that's how it was put.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Chairman.
Now, will you please ensure that all mobiles are off, and remember that the members of the press and public may be watching. We will undertake a roll call of all councillors to confirm attendance. The solicitor will now undertake the roll call. I will then move on to the formal agenda.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, this is just to confirm absence or absences and those present. So if I can just go through and if you can just respond present if you are in the call. Councillor Applin.
Apologies, please, Chairman, for Councillor Applin.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton,
Present.
Councillor Bell,
Present.
Councillor Bird,
Present.
Councillor Bridger,
Present.
Councillor Bryant,
Present.
Councillor Butte,
Present.
Councillor Caniford,
Present.
Councillor Cartman,
Present.
Councillor Cato,
Present.
Councillor Charles,
Present.
Councillor Cherry.
Present.
I've received apologies from Councillor Clayton already. Councillor Codling,
Present.
Councillor Cole,
Present.
Councillor Crew,
Present.
Councillor Crockford-Hawley,
Present.
Councillor Crommelly,
Present.
Councillor Crosby,
Present.
Councillor Davies,
Present.
and Councillor Gibbons.
Present.
And I think Councillor Gregor is absent. He's given apologies. Councillor Griggs.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Harley. Are you with us tonight, Councillor Harley?
I think Councillor Harley is present, but her phone, I think, is muted.
Okay, I'll move on. If you can come back in, Councillor Harley, please do let me know. Councillor Haverson.
Present.
Councillor Hearn.
Present.
Councillor Hitchens. Not heard from Councillor Hitchens. Councillor Hogg.
Present.
Councillor Holland.
Present.
Councillor Jacobs.
Present.
Councillor James.
Present.
Councillor Keating.
Present.
Councillor Leigh Morgan.
Present.
Councillor McQuillan.
Present.
Councillor Parker.
Present.
Councillor Payne.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Pepperell. Councillor Petty.
Present.
Councillor Pilgrim.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Porter.
Present.
Councillor Richardson.
Present.
Councillor Shopland.
Present.
Councillor Snadden.
Nick, Councillor Snaden's just sent me a message. He's unable to log in with his iPad. So
Okay.
for you to accept his apologies, please.
Okay, if he is able to join us later, if you could let me know, that would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Councillor Solomon.
Present.
Councillor Tonkin.
Present.
Councillor Treadaway. Councillor Tucker is apologies. Councillor Westwood.
Present.
And Councillor Willis, I think, is apologies. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. You're welcome.
Thank you. Item 1 on the agenda, addresses by members of the public. We have received 3. They have been circulated to you, and I move that they be noted and dealt with under item 6. All those in, please show. We should do a show of hands on this, it will be quicker.
Chairman, if I can just ask any member voting against.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Apologies for absence.
We've taken those as part of the roll call, Chairman. Thank you.
Petitions to be presented by members. Item 3, there are none. The declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests. Are there any? Item 5, the minutes of the 14th of July. They're attached. Would someone please propose they be accepted?
Can I, Don Davis, propose they be accepted as a true record? Look for a seconder.
Again, I'll do this by a show of hands. All those in favour, please show.
Chairman, I can't.
May I raise a point of accuracy, Chairman?
Thank you. Motions by members.
Chairman,
Yes,
excuse me, may I raise a point of accuracy on the minutes, please?
keep going.
Just a tiny one, just my name spelt incorrectly on the register of attendance. If that could be amended.
I do apologise, Councillor Codling, that will be amended.
No problem, it's only a lost age, thank you.
And Chairman, we haven't got all councillors on video, so we can't see show of hands, so we will need to ask if they'll indicate by chat if they are voting against.
Very quickly then, we'll just show they're approved again now they've been amended, please, all those show.
Anything in chat, Hazel?
There's nothing in chat, Nick.
Thank you, that's taken, Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman, there's two messages. If I can remind councillors on the phone, if you wish to unmute, it's *6, and the same to mute yourself. And Councillor Caniford has declared an interest in item 6.2.
Thank you. Item 6, motion by members. Councillor Payne, a motion on the nature emergency. Councillor Payne.
Chairman, thank you. I note that we've received a very late and rather complex amendment only about an hour and a half before the meeting. It refers to matters, for example, what certain other councils are doing, and of which we've got no knowledge. I'm very keen that we go ahead and declare the nature emergency, but obviously this needs a lot more of investigation. So with great regret, I feel that because of this, I need to withdraw the motion until the next council meeting.
Thank you very much. We move on to item 7.
Chairman,
Yes.
sorry. Apparently Councillor Petty wishes to speak.
The motion, yes, but you cannot move an amendment on amendment that's been withdrawn. The amendment is being if the amendment is being withdrawn, there is no debate.
I'll just respond by saying I hope that I can work together with Councillor Payne to work up any developments of this motion so that together we might bring forward a detailed and specific work on how we could declare a biodiversity emergency.
Chairman, there's no debate.
We are now moving to the second member's motion, eviction of private housing. Councillor Payne.
Thank you, Chairman. And I'd also like to thank the organisation who's shown their support during public participation, which I hope members have read. For campaign groups and organisations representing tenants and the homeless, this is a pretty big issue. All of our communities up and down North Somerset have private housing tenants, and it's a rapidly growing number too. Some people choose to rent privately and others do so because of the increasing lack of access to other types of tenures. But either way, none of these tenants can be secure in their own homes because at any time their landlord can decide on a whim to get rid of them. They don't have to give any reason, and they can do this with the full backing of the law under Section 21 of the Housing Act. These no-fault evictions are now the biggest cause of homelessness across the country, and there's something like 100,000 children living in temporary accommodation as a result. And even those who aren't immediately threatened with eviction, they always have the awareness that this can happen at any time in the future. So people are continually insecure in their own homes. A safe and secure home is surely one of the most basic human rights, and it is unacceptable that within our society, someone's position in their own home can be so fragile. This insecurity also means that tenants are less likely to feel invested in or play a part in the local community and less likely to put down roots. And crucially, there is often a fear that it is too dangerous to complain to their landlord, as there could be serious repercussions. This encourages bad landlords to keep their properties in poor condition. Of course, many landlords in North Somerset are very good, and the best ones will work with their tenants. But Section 21 is an iniquitous rule that gives landlords far too much control over the lives of their tenants. So it was encouraging to hear the government making a commitment to reviewing and consulting on this, and it appeared in the Queen's speech last December. But although there has been some tweaks to the rules, principally as a result of the pandemic, there has been a disappointing lack of any real move towards the abolition of no-fault evictions. So in the event that a consultation does come forward from the government, I want this council to make it absolutely clear that we support the abolition of Section 21. And even if a consultation doesn't happen, then I think we should still let them know anyway and remind them of the commitment that they made. And I hope we can also support other organisations in keeping up the pressure to bring about this important change. So I'm happy to propose the motion as it states in the papers, Chairman. Thank you.
Have you a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Are there 7 people to support that this motion be debated? They please show.
Members, for this purpose, could you use the show of hands button? And could we admit the person on the phone, and I'll just check who they are before we proceed, if that's okay, Chairman.
Tim Snaden
is now joining.
Thank you. As Councillor Snaden has just joined us on the phone, Chairman. Hazel, is there enough show of hands? Plenty. Many thanks.
Yes, yes,
Right,
Nick.
thank you.
Yes, there are.
If you will show if you wish to speak, then the clerk will call you.
Again, members, if you can do that through the chat function.
Chairman, so far I have Councillor James, followed by Councillor Haverson.
Will you call the first one first, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank Councillor Payne for this important motion and give it my strong support. No fault evictions erode renter rights and turn letting agreements into merely guarding investment. I'm thankful that the Conservative Party made a promise to get rid of Section 21, and since it was in the Queen's speech, I look forward to seeing them actually go ahead with it. And I look forward to seeing our Conservative colleagues voting for this motion that that puts forward a promise that they have given to our voters too. So it's good to attract crowd. Section 21 creates a huge power imbalance between the tenant and the landlord that's unjustifiable. Tenants cannot confront their landlords over dodgy repairs, over excessive advocacy. We've recently had a court case where a landlord was seen as okay evicting their tenant just because the tenant complained that certain requirements weren't done. It completely gets rid of any ability for tenants with some unscrupulous landlords to be able to advocate themselves and to create the confidence they need to have housing security. It creates anxiety, uncertainty and instability, and especially when COVID-19 is here and it's shown us how important it is to have security of tenure, then I think I really support this motion that Robert's been put forward. As I would just like to give my thanks to North Somerset Housing Action Group. I've spoken to Alan Rice recently about this sort of thing and other issues developing within the Housing Issues Steering Group. Recently, legislation has changed around Section 21. I think at the moment it's 8-week eviction period. The newly development Housing Issues Steering Group, created by Mark Crosby, is going to monitor how evictions are playing out in North Somerset, and we really want to make sure that tenants across North Somerset aren't played on by their landlords. And I thank Mark and Don for creating that group so that we can give greater security to private sector renters. Thank you, Robert, for this brilliant motion, and I urge you all to vote for it.
Chairman, Councillor Haverson is next to speak.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I really want to thank Councillor Payne for this important motion. I totally second what has just been said. Based on the experience of those of us who've had some background in citizens' advice, we know the impact that this law, Section 21, has on people's lives. There are also other side benefits which I'd like to highlight based on my experience in the other country I know well. It totally increases the properties of the tenancies, because the quality is increased considerably, because people feel that with security of tenure, they can invest in their home, which they don't ever feel when they have that insecurity. So the actual standard of accommodation goes up enormously when people have given that security. Thank you.
Chairman, I believe Councillor Ashton may wish to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I don't know the detail of Section 21, but whilst I support the principle, I am concerned at what protection there would be in this motion and in the Act when it comes out for the individual landlord. They're not all multiple landlords, they're not all corporations, and some indeed at the moment are going through financial difficulties themselves. What protection would there be for them?
Can I say a word at this point? One thing worries me, which is the second part: abolish no fault evictions. There are people who let their house for a short period of time while they're abroad or they're moving, they change their jobs. There are people who have to realise the house to make ends meet. There are families that inherit houses that they can't afford to keep. And I personally would not support a no fault eviction, because that means the tenant, as you read it, has to do something wrong. To give a reasonable reason, I would support, but I cannot support a no fault, because that implies that the landlord, in a sense, can never get possession of the house, and there are times when they have to.
Chairman, could I have an answer to my question?
I don't know whether anyone can give you one.
Well, that's precisely my point with the problem with a motion like this, that it doesn't actually look at everybody else.
Well, then I think let me have a choice. We either support it or reject it.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman.
Anyone else wish to speak?
Yes, Chairman. Councillor Gibbons, then Councillor Davies, then Councillor Charles.
Right. Councillor Gibbons?
Thank you.
Councillor Gibbons.
Yes, okay, thank you. I was just going to add my voice to supporting this motion. Like Councillor Havison and I believe Councillor James, I've been involved with Citizens Advice, and I've dealt with many people who have experienced the strain and upset of being evicted for no apparent reason. And it is distressing, it is upsetting for people. And I welcome this motion. I won't go on too long because I believe others before me have said pretty much what I would have said. So thank you.
Chairman, I think Councillor James may be able to highlight some issue for Councillor Ashton, answer his question.
Sure, is that all right? I'm taking that as a yes. I was just going to say that, the government have, I don't know the specifics, that the government have already looked into what landlord protections there are if Section 21 would end. And there are lots of other protections that cover many, many other things that aren't Section 21, which is a slap bang notice to leave the property within 4 weeks. So if you look at your own party's sort of policy analysis of it, then you'll be able to get some answers.
Councillor apologies, Councillor Davies is next on the list.
Thank you all. Yes, just to answer the point, is that the consultation is on abolition of Section 21. Of course, it's not within our power as North Somerset Council to do that, and there'll be a full debate through both houses of Parliament to come to a satisfactory conclusion. I think all we're being asked to do today is to support the concept of the Section 21 no-fault evictions being removed, and a much fairer process for those who happen to rent. I mean, it does surprise me in this day and age that we would give more protection to somebody who buys a vacuum cleaner than somebody who rents a property as their home. And of course, let's be objective around this as well as the personal impact. It has got a serious effect on all our residents who are subject to these evictions. They may have to move. They may have to move house at very short notice. They may lose a job. Their children may have to move to different schools. Disruption that is, and of course the council potentially has to put people into emergency accommodation. So it's the socialisation of the pain, and the gain all stands with the landlord, of course. And the one thing that does disappoint me rather in the tone is, of course, that if you rent property, it is a business, and you go into any business, take into account the risks and rewards of that business. And it does strike me that within the current legislation around those who rent properties out, that doesn't seem to apply. And I know many of you do run businesses, and I think if you had the level of protection or the lack of control of the consumer within your businesses, your business would run in a completely different way. So I'm very supportive of this, and I would like to ask the person that's proposing it, Councillor Payne, if he would like myself as the executive member for housing to write a letter encompassing his resolution to the relevant government department. That's an offer I can make to if he wishes to take it up, then I'm more than happy to do so. But that's entirely within his remit. So I'm supportive of it, and that's what I'd like to do to help. Thank you.
Councillor Harley here. May I speak as well? Can you put I'm on the phone?
Yeah. Yes.
Chairman,
What,
Councillor Charles has asked to speak.
Yes. Fine. Councillor Charles, then, whoever.
Thank you. Councillor Davies has already covered one of my points I was going to make with regards to Councillor Ashton's question, which is that we do have a responsibility as a society as well as the responsibility of landlords, because people in private rented accommodation are families, they are people with jobs, and the current system, with its lack of adequate notice time, can wreck stabilities of families, which put a drain on the community, the economy, and the physical and mental health of private rented tenants. It is interesting to note that a few years ago, for the first time in this country's history, there's actually more private renters than those in social housing. So there is very little choice. Social housing provision has dropped by nearly 2/3 in the last 16 years in North Somerset, and has not met with demand. And I fully support this motion, but I think, as a society, we need to campaign for more with regards to protection of tenants' rights. For example, capping of rents to a market average in certain areas as well, and a decent home standard so that people are not living in slum accommodation and paying a fortune. So I thank the councillor for this motion, and I actually think there is a whole plethora of issues within the private rented sector that need to be looked at. Thank you.
Councillor Harley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I can't believe I'm listening to a conversation like this, quite frankly. I'm not sure I support it, but I'm not sure where Councillor Charles is coming from, that there's so many private rented properties in North Somerset, because in the past, we were finding it difficult to get actually tenants to let. And we had a councillor at one time that did have quite a lot of property. And what is happening here, it seems to me, and I would like to have evidence in the last paragraph of where there's been problem where the tenants are being kicked out, because in actual fact a lot of these private tenants, and I know people are going to contradict me because that's par for the course, a lot of these tenants sometimes trash the places, and then the landlord has to go in and redo it. And believe you me, please do not think that every tenant that goes in there is actually acting responsibly, because they are not. So whilst I support it, I would like to know the evidence of where they've been turned away and kicked out and everything like that, because what we're doing is voting on something where we haven't got all the evidence. Thank you.
I think Councillor Crewe may wish to speak, Chairman. He has his hand up, followed by Councillor Solomon.
He's surrendering.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I agree with the motion and right into the comment on this, but I've always taken the belief that good tenants should have security. We have to stop there because I have 2 cases at the moment where our enforcement teams are involved because the people renting are running a business without permission of the landlord. The landlord's in difficulty because he's given them a 2-year cover. We're now having to look at the business and use our enforcement team to try and stop the business operating. So there is levels which we do have to be careful of, but in general, the general theme, all good tenants should have security, totally agree with, and right into the government to put that point so when it comes before the Commons, they can deal with that. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Solomon is next, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair. My only concern is if we start putting too much legislation in place, that we may possibly kill that market because landlords will decide they're not going to put their houses on the market, and that's my only concern. Although I tend to agree that we really do have to protect these people that are renting, but we could do more harm than good if we put legislation in place. That's my only concern.
Chairman, Councillor Codling wishes to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to bring members back really to what the function or possibilities are around council motions. We aren't here, as somebody said, I think maybe the leader said, we aren't. It's not in our gift to legislate upon this. The motion suggests throwing support and encouragement to further develop the legislation. And I was very pleased personally and from a campaigning point of view that the Conservative Party has put this legislative commitment in place. And I also would suggest that colleagues safeguard against these stereotypes. So we're not talking about evil landlords over here. Sometimes people have to get into a position of being a landlord, and they struggle to do that. Sometimes there's support needed there, but let's also not slip into the stereotype, because unfortunately I can give you personal examples, Councillor Harley and others, of homelessness has touched my family, sadly, but also troublesome tenants, for example. So, you know, we've really got to safeguard against painting all parties in these matters with one size, because it doesn't fit all. And I would suggest, I don't have a form of wording, but I would suggest that an amended motion may be more efficacious for us in terms of supporting the principle to improve this situation for all parties, but whilst recognising that there is more work to do, which of course the government is undertaking, and that we as a local authority cannot legislate on it. So I would suggest we do that. Thank you.
Chairman, Councillor Bryant has indicated his wish to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I was interested in what Mike Solomon said, because I've been a landlord now for almost 50 years, and it's a two-way street. You look after your tenants and the tenants will look after you. There are problem tenants, and I've had my fair share of those in the past. And this new legislation that's coming in is quite onerous, because apparently if a tenant fails to pay you rent for a period of 6 months, it's only then that you can attempt to evict them. It will take 2 months to get your application to be heard in the court. The courts will then give at least 2 months notice to the tenant. The tenant, and these are the types that you're dealing with, will decide to stay put. You then have to apply more money again for the bailiffs, and you'll get a date when the bailiffs move in. And guess what? They move out on the night before the bailiffs arrive. And in this particular scenario now, a landlord could be without rent for a year. And when they go to take over that accommodation, invariably they will find it absolutely wrecked, and it'll cost them thousands and thousands of pounds to put right. Now, that's my part as a landlord to inform you. But what you've got to look at is what the repercussions are on the local authorities. The local authorities, if they've made things so difficult for landlords that they are quitting, and I can assure you there are quite a number of landlords who are quitting because some of these new things coming in are very onerous. Well, it's the local authorities will pick up the tab. The local authorities have already been picking up the tab and are paying as much as twice the monthly rent for troublesome tenants to those landlords who are prepared to accept them. And all I can say is if you're too hard on this particular legislation, the cost for the local authorities throughout the country will be onerous. Having said that, I will declare a non-pecuniary interest and I shall not vote on this particular item. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, Councillor Davies has wished to speak.
I note your comments there, Councillor Bright, thanks for that. But I think you're muddling things up, aren't you? The Section 21 arrangements are as exist now and have existed for a considerable period of time. You're referring to the arrangements as a result of the COVID emergency brought in by the present Conservative government, in which there is an exemption on evictions. They have to give 6 months' notice, but those exemptions don't apply if people are responsible for antisocial behaviour, are more than 6 months in arrears, or there's massive domestic abuse involved. So I don't think that Councillor Payne's motion is referring to any of these at all. He is referring to people who have paid their rent and have established within their community, have their children at school or working locally, who suddenly get a request to leave their property at very short notice. And this is what the central government we deal with is also suggesting is incorrect. So I don't think this scenario that you're painting is anything to do with Councillor Payne's motion. I do note the comments you make, and I don't think any of us here are saying that anybody who abuses their property should have any level of cover. I don't think Councillor Payne is saying that, and I don't think any of my colleagues are. I think we're all agreeing with you, Peter Bryant, that is inaccurate. I wouldn't want members of the public to think. I wouldn't want to think that the two were together, because they aren't.
Thank you, Chair, Leader. But what I wanted to do was to flag up the problems that do exist, and it's my understanding that I think this 6 months rule, which has been now extended for another 6 months, will in fact become law at the end of the day. Thank you.
Chairman, Councillor Bell is next.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to put a bit of context behind this motion, and I do support it. And I think lots of members have already articulated good reasons to support it. But the critical one that I think hasn't been mentioned is to reflect on the government's stated policy for this, which is that they want to reform renting and the rented sector to encourage longer tenancies. And we know that that's good for everybody. It's good for landlords because it makes sense to have good, long-standing, stable tenants in place who are paying their rent well. And it's good for tenants who can have confidence and certainty about their housing needs. So the objective of getting rid of Section 21 is twofold, really. It is partly to encourage and incentivise longer tenancies where everybody can have more confidence. And that is directly relevant to the council, because we know that when short-term tenancies are ended for whatever reason by landlords, many people end up falling into the housing support services that are provided by local councils. So it's critical that we avoid people needlessly falling out of the rented sector where it's at all possible. but also critically that it gives that long-term confidence that tenants need and that landlords need. Now, the government's consultation that they ran in the summer of last year, and which obviously fell because of the general election that was called, did propose alternative basis for landlords to manage their property. So it wasn't about removing the rights of landlords where there were critical reasons such as rent arrears or antisocial behaviour, which meant that they needed to terminate a tenancy. So it absolutely was not about ending those rights, but what it was about is making it more challenging for landlords who sought to evict tenants for no reason. And we know that when they evicted tenants for no reason, in fact, often the reason was that the tenant had complained about the quality of maintenance, or there was some sort of dispute between a landlord and a tenant. So in fact, it was often perfectly legitimate complaints by tenants or personality clashes that were driving the so-called no-fault evictions. So it seems to me that tightening up the law about that is entirely sensible, and what we should all be doing is supporting the government's stated policy position, which is what this motion is calling for, and encourage them to get on with it.
Chairman, I believe Councillor Leigh Morgan has indicated his wish to speak.
Yes, apologies. I can't find the chat function. It's only a quickie. If the council leader is writing to the relevant minister, may I recommend, if he wouldn't have normally done it anyway, that he copies his letter to both our MPs so that in any debate that they may be taking part, they will know exactly where this council is coming from. Thank you.
Chairman, I believe there's no further request to speak.
Therefore, I will, with great relief, ask Councillor Payne to sum up.
Thank you very much, Chairman. What I've been trying to, the point I've been trying to make is that the situation as it stands, there is too little security for tenants. The balance is too much against the tenants. So I would say to Councillor Ashton that it's not really for us to come up with what should replace this and what will be in place for landlords. But if you want to know how this can work, you can look at the part of the UK where no-fault evictions are already banned, and that's in Scotland, where they were banned by the Scottish Government in 2017. And that has worked extremely well. And research by the charity Shelter has shown that renters in Scotland are now far less worried about becoming homeless, and they feel far more secure in the new tenancy arrangements there. I also want to stress that this is about no-fault evictions. So where tenants have not looked after the property or they've caused problems, antisocial behaviour, whatever, it doesn't affect that at all. Finally, I'd like to thank Councillor Davis for the offer to write to the government, and I accept that offer. Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, just before you move to the vote, there have been a couple of declarations of interest made verbally to the meeting, but there were a couple in chat which won't have been visible to everybody, certainly members on the phone and the public. So I believe I have declarations of interest from Councillors Caniford, James, Richardson and Bryant for this item.
And I will also abstain, being a landlord.
Thank you, Chairman.
All those in favour, please show.
Chairman, can we take it the other way? Is there anybody against, so that we can do it in chat?
Anyone against?
We'll see nothing. Hazel, are you?
Nothing in chat, no, Nick.
Spoken. Any abstentions, Chairman?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And everybody else taken as voting for then, Chairman, so that is clearly carried.
Thank you. We now move on to item.
Chairman, I request that in the minutes, those of us who abstain from voting, that it's actually minuted.
Certainly.
Right.
Thank you.
Item 7, matters referred from previous meeting, none. Chairman's announcements. It looks as if this is going to be a long night. Please note that the street lights are switched off relatively early, and I have to go home by myself in the dark. Leader's announcement.
Same reasons, David. I have none.
Chief Executive's announcements.
Thank you, Chair. I thought it would be helpful just to give you an update of COVID-19 here in North Somerset. So as of today, our daily alert for the for the 7-day rate based on a full week's data is 15 per 100,000 here in North Somerset. That compares to the southwest average of 9.7 per 100,000, and indeed the national average of 34.4 per 100,000. I just also wanted to note the announcements that have been made over the last week. So over the weekend, we had an announcement about councils administering payments to those on low income who will need to self-isolate. And we have a piece of work in hand about how we progress that. We're still awaiting the detailed guidance from government around that one. We've also had announcements today which reiterated our messages that we've been consistent about working from home wherever you can. That is a clear thrust of the messages we've received from the Prime Minister's announcements. But also we were reflecting on the increased use of face masks, for example, in retail. So we will be discussing as a senior team what that means to us in terms of enforcement. Again, we'll be waiting the guidelines on that. And then obviously we're noting that hospitality venues will be closing from Thursday at 10 p.m. So it was just really reflecting on the fact that a series of announcements have been made, and myself with my senior team will be working through those and ensuring that we'll be able to deliver against the expectations of the council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Item 10, beg your pardon, item 11, forward plan, leader to present.
The forward plan is as in the papers and as was published. I would propose that we accept it. I have a seconder, please.
Happy to second.
Are there any questions?
Petty.
Nothing in chat, Chairman.
I propose it be noted. All those in favour, please show. Raise your hands, please, if you're in favour. Thank you. Item 12, Policy and Scrutiny Panel Report. Are there any questions on the report?
Chairman, Councillor Anne Harley here.
Yes.
I would just like to, I don't know, I can hear something else. And I just wanted to just query and clarify something on the Children and Young People Scrutiny Panel, right. Which I think was important to mention. At the meeting on the 18th of June, we had to send in questions which were answered. The final question, and I want to know that I mentioned, was, in my opinion, extremely important, and that was that once this, well, it hasn't ended, the COVID, I mean, obviously, but I wanted an update on how the schools had performed in the teaching and the parents' resolves and how they supported it, and what were the fors and what were the against. And it's vitally important because the implications that I've received is that some schools have been extremely good and the teachers have been very good in the same school, but some of them haven't. Now, I'm not trying to criticise teachers at all. I have a lot of respect for them. But what I want to know, as a member of that panel, I want to know, and so I'm sure would the public be, that we need to have that information, and I think it should have been in this report in order that the public who will see it will understand that we were asking for that. And that's what I want to bring to the attention. Thank you for that.
Chairman, Councillor Gibbons has asked to speak.
Councillor Anne Harley.
Is now exiting.
Right, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of Councillor Tucker to thank Councillor Richardson for preparing this report for the Health Scrutiny Overview Panel, because as you all know, Councillor Tucker is unfortunately unwell. He is making a steady recovery and will be hopefully starting a phased return to work, but I know he would want to express his gratitude for the support that Councillor Richardson has given him and also to the officers. So that's all. Thank you.
Chairman, Councillor Crewe has indicated his wish to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on the public space protection orders, I've been asked, because I chair the community safety group, I've been asked by one or two members why the order hasn't included a lot of requests that were made for later on. We made the decision, because we had about 70 requests, to publish the ones we currently have to get them extended, because the 3-year period is up, and then have a second bite.
Councillor Anne Harley.
And go
now
through
joining.
And actually do a separate meeting and a separate submission to get those that we think we need approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, I have no more indication to speak in chat.
In which case, I move from the chair it be noted. All those in favour, please show.
So those who speak, pictures I can see are voting for, show us not. And if I would just say, noted the council kitchens and the meeting, so we can mark them.
Thank you.
Mick, I think you're on mute.
My apologies. I was just saying that was carried, and I've also noted that Councillor Hitchens has joined the meeting, so he will be shown as present for part meeting.
Item 13, corporate parenting. Councillor Gibbons.
Thank you. I'll endeavour to be brief because I'm quite certain that everybody has read this brief report. This is the first of the reports that we intend to make as a standard matter to every council meeting, because I know that you all as corporate parents are as concerned, engaged and interested as I am in the progress of our looked after children, and indeed of all young people in North Somerset. So the purpose of this report was just, as you see, to highlight what is involved in being a corporate parent. I mean, some of us who are more sort of long-standing councillors are well aware of this. I used to be a member of the Children's Champion panel back in the day, and that has now changed its name and become the Corporate Parenting Panel. When we had the briefing in July, which was again delayed because of COVID, we had planned to have that in April. I was really pleased to see how many councillors attended, and the level of input that we had from people was absolutely amazing and heartwarming. We're in the process of taking up some of the offers of help, mentoring, all sorts of things that people put forward at the time, and it's taking a bit of time to sort of tease through how we work to get those in place for our young people. But it's a fantastic start, and I'd like to thank everybody who has come forward and offered so much. One of the other things that you'll note in this paper, and I was waiting for someone to point out, it was I would like to say it was a little test to make sure you've all read it, but it wasn't. There were a couple of typos, and if anybody spots them, I'll give them a I'll give them a box of chocolates. But anyway, they're minor. In 2.1, instead of faster, it should read 4, and under 3.1, the sixth bullet point, it should say within rather than opinion. That's the joys of predictive text, I'm afraid. Anyway, the other point I want to raise before anybody has any discussion about this is to draw to your attention that we have discussed as an executive some time ago to appoint a youth champion. This came about after some discussions with my colleague, Councillor Charles, and also Councillor Tonkin, because we all have significant consultations coming down the line in terms of the skills agenda with young people to choose their future, and in terms of the plan, and Councillor Tonkins need to consult there with younger people. We have an older person's champion in Councillor Parker, so I thought it would be great if we had a young person's or a youth champion. And we'd thought, well, let's have a look at the councillor body and see if we have any councillors who are 30 and under. And we do. We have 2. So rather than make a choice between them, both of them were keen to do this as a job share, because they would then cover both areas of the district, north and south, and be able to bounce ideas off, act as ambassadors and work, I think, closely together. So what I'm asking for you today is to support me in appointing Councillor Kieran Cronley and Councillor Hugh James as our youth champions. And I'm going to ask them to just say a couple of words about how they see the role before we go to, is a vote required? Perhaps the solicitor could advise me, or can we just...
No, before we go too far, you're going to have to get a seconder for all of this, and then they can speak. So have you a seconder, please?
I second with great pleasure.
Right,
Thank
now
you.
you can speak, ma'am.
Right, okay. So can I now ask the 2 councillors to say a few words about how they see their position in this new role?
Sure. So thank you, if that's all right, Chair.
That's fine.
I would.
I'm asking the chair. Go ahead, Councillor James, and then I'll
thank
hear
you
from
very much for giving me the privilege of being champion for young people in North Somerset. The divided effect of COVID-19 between age groups has been commented on frequently, and young people in North Somerset have given up so much to protect and safeguard the whole of their community. The administration committed itself to making North Somerset a more open and fair place to live. If we're going to build back better, then championing young people's issues and tackling intergenerational inequalities is going to be a key part of achieving that aim. I look forward to working to sharing this role with Kieran, engaging with, representing and listening to, and as Councillor Cronley is going to say later, advocating with young people for change in the district. So thank you very much for this role, and hopefully we will encourage the entire of the council to look over young people's issues, not just issues relating to youth and children, but across the council.
Yeah, thank you. And Kieran?
Yeah, thank you, Hugh. My internet's dreadful, so if you can't hear me, it would have been profound what I was going to say. So I just wanted to say a couple things. Firstly, it's really important that we as a council take positive steps to ensure the voices of young people in North Somerset are heard and help to shape our council services. And this role certainly takes a step forward in doing so. We need to understand young people's hopes and their aspirations, their fears and their anxieties, and we need to respond to that. I want to be clear, though, to every councillor here that the appointment of Hugh and I to youth champions doesn't replace each of our responsibilities to consider young people in our decision making. It simply enhances it. I see the role of a youth champion not as an advocate that speaks on behalf of young people, but as a role that advocates with young people. And to advocate with them means we need to engage and listen to them, which is precisely what Hugh and I intend to do, and hopefully you will support.
Right, thank you both.
Could I ask a question, Chairman?
Yes.
I haven't finished. I haven't finished talking to the report.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, you finish, and then I'll ask a question.
Yeah. I was just going to go on and say that bringing these 2 issues together in discussion with Councillor Cronley, he has very sensibly suggested that we should, as councillors, as corporate parents, write a special letter to our young people, congratulating them on their achievements in education during this very difficult time. I think that's a very wise decision of his and a great first action for one of our youth champion designates. Let Councillor Harley ask her question before we go on to any further discussion.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just, I wanted clarification, if I may. Is this report to do with just corporate parents? In other words, corporate parents who looked after children. Is that right?
Is correct, yes.
That's correct. So what we're saying here, this was the old Children's Champions report, wasn't it? Or this is, right.
That's right.
It's very confusing. I'm sorry, it's very confusing when we change names. So my question really is, although I absolutely have no issues with these two young boys being, you suggesting that they go, well, yeah, there are two young boys that are being brought forward. I'm sure they were brilliant, but I'm concerned that we really want to reach out and get the young people, the youth councils back in, the youth councils who will, pardon me, but form the future, because I said this to you, Catherine, when we were changing the Children's Champions name to corporate parenting, and I did bring up and say I'm very concerned we could be locked into the situation whereby we're going to be just corporate parenting and no other children matters. And I think that's what we've got a difficulty in here. That's to me, because I find this quite confusing. I feel that I would love to see where we encourage the youth councils in schools in coming forward into the authority when we get back to normal and actually address it. And so I really think if we're going under the umbrella of corporate parenting, we're just taking one body, however important it is, and you know how passionate I am about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to come back on that. Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Harley. We have discussed that. And the youth champions aren't specifically for the corporate parenting panel. It's just, it was a mechanism whereby I could introduce this to this particular council rather than bringing a motion or something else. We added it to this report. But they will be able to reach out to young people. We've certainly talked about re-energising the Youth Council. We've talked about various instituting other forums for young people so that we hear their voice. And certainly, as you've read in the report, going forward, we will be hearing the voices of the young people who we are corporate parents to as well. In some ways, doing things digitally may make it easier to hear from people. They are far more tech savvy than a lot of us and won't be so challenged by the concept of attending a meeting with a load of councillors. You know, when it's online, it's a lot less threatening for young people, I think. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I believe that Kieran and Hugh will be great ambassadors going out into schools and colleges to talk to young people. They're a lot closer to the concerns of those people than you or I, sadly.
Well, listen, age doesn't matter, but I mean, I do agree with you. It's actually your vision and the way forward. And, you know, that's a point. And whilst you're talking about being on the internet, and I totally agree with you, but at the end of the day, one you gain and others you lose because you lose the social contact.
Well, none of us want that, but
no,
you know,
this is what I'm saying.
We are with COVID, yeah. I mean, okay. I was going to say that one of the things that has saddened me in my current role and thinking about our corporate responsibilities as corporate parents is that COVID has taken away that opportunity to meet with the young people in the drop-in, to go to the cafe, to talk to the foster carers and their children. I had one opportunity this summer at a paddleboarding event to meet and chat to people, but that was few and far between because you're right, we have been cut off from our young people and we have to do whatever we can to mitigate that, reach out in whatever ways we can until that happy day when we return to some kind of normality. And I hope that's soon.
Before we go any further with this is really outside of the terms of the report, what you're discussing now. So can we get back to the report and any questions or comments on the report?
It wasn't outside of the
Chairman, Councillor Cato has asked to speak.
Councillor Cato. Right.
Hello, and thank you very much for that, Chairman. I just wanted to say I was very pleasantly surprised and pleased to hear that we have this concept of corporate parenting and that we have a responsibility to our corporate children. It was such a strange concept and such a worthwhile concept, particularly because I think that people of all ages, as they come through their lives, come through very difficult times in a whole range of different ways, and it's beholden to us all to step up somehow and reach out and help with that process. I mean, just in the same way as we would with our own children, to provide environments and support for their growth and success and personal development. And I just have to say I'm so pleased to hear about it, and really pleased that we as a council are doing this. So congratulations to everybody who set this up and made it happen. Ace, wonderful.
Chairman, I believe Councillor Crewe may wish to speak. Councillor Crewe?
I don't recall, but now you've asked me, I will make this comment. I think it's a great choice of the two boys. However, us oldies do remember a BBC comedy, Hugh and I. So maybe Hugh should say it and say Kieran and I.
Chairman, Councillor Codling has asked to speak.
Thank you, Chairman, and it is relating to where the report, the discussion led. Congratulations to the two men who've been appointed to that role. Can I please remind everyone that Weston-super-Mare has a youth council. It's becoming relatively vibrant yet again, and even though I'm an old timer comparatively, I'm very proud to be the Western Town Council Youth Champion, and there's an open invite to work with you in any way I can. We'd love to get their voices heard more, and I would make a plea, much as I believe you'll both do a really outstanding job. The most powerful form of advocacy is self-advocacy, so please let's have a focus on helping young people to get their voices heard. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, Councillor Charles wishes to speak.
Sorry, just going off mute. I've seconded, I'd like to say that the two nominated men are of a very high standard and will do a fantastic role. I would like to raise an air of caution on the stereotyping of young people and their skills and ability. I've worked in previous roles with young people who have looked at multi-million-pound contracts, and also we have prime examples internationally of people not only under the age of 30 but under the age of 20 that are leading advocates for environmental change, and one that's recently won the Nobel Peace Prize. So never underestimate young people. Thank you.
Chairman, I have no more indications to speak in chat.
Right, so can I take, do we need a vote on the youth champions, or can we take it that our appointment is approved?
I think we have to have a vote, ma'am. We cannot just decide willy-nilly. So all those in favour of youth champions, please show.
I'm not seeing any votes against, Chairman.
Thank you. That is carried.
Chairman, I'm sorry, I've just got to leave the meeting.
Is that permanently,
Right.
Councillor Harley? Are you
I
returning?
don't know at the moment. I don't know at the moment.
No problem. Thank you.
Therefore, I will also move from the chair that the rest of the report be noted. All those in favour, please show.
Councillor Anne Harley.
Is now exiting.
Are you all in favour, or have you all gone to sleep? Because there aren't many hands showing. Thank you. We now come to question time, and there is only one written question, and I have one observation to make. I will allow this question to stand, but please, it is a multi-question. A question at question time is a question and a supplementary. So could that be noted for the future, please?
Here, here.
So I will ask.
My apologies, Chairman.
No, it's all right. You tried. I would have tried too, but it's a question of the gatekeeper composure. All right.
Very good. It's an important issue, though.
Right. We will now move on to item number 15, reporting matters referred to the executive.
So that I can answer that, because it was expressed that I would provide an oral response.
I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, ma'am. I thought you'd done it in writing.
No, sorry. So I would like to thank Councillor Cato for these questions, and I appreciate he did provide me quite a detailed set of questions. I completely agree that the work that we continue to do as a whole council in addressing the climate emergency should continue to be at the forefront and be addressed with urgency and importance. I won't go into, you'll be pleased to hear I won't go into detail in answering every single question, and I will be providing a written response in the coming days. I'm delighted that Nikki Webb, our climate emergency project manager, was able to give me some information. There was question 2 was what progress had been made towards the goal already. And I do want to I'll just give you a little specifics. What we have is the Tyndall Centre carbon budget targets has emissions for North Somerset being reduced by approximately 14% each year. This council's own operations target includes scope 1 and 2, and these emissions reduced by 38% between 2018-19 and 2019-20 financial years. However, this reduction was in a large part due to the purchasing of renewable energy tariff partway through that period. So that's of note, and I think it's important. For the area, we don't yet have the data for 2019. So I thought it was good to have that specific observation, and it's not to say that we can continue to achieve such dramatic reductions, but we should continue to work hard. Question 3 is what can or must each member of this council and the council do to help ensure we reach that goal of carbon neutral by 2030? And she's prepared this response, and it's fair to say each member of this council should make every effort to attend the Climate Action Planning Day on the 15th of October. Invites you will have already received into your inbox, but do ask me if you need further information. This is the launch event for carbon literacy training across the council and will equip members with a more in-depth understanding of the issues faced by their constituents in the coming years, and how we can use our role as a councillor to support them. It will empower members to ask and question decisions that are made and papers that are brought in front of them. Will this improve or do more harm? Is it as good as it can be? And will enable us to think long term about making decisions, and is this the best thing to do right now and in the future? Further answers I'll prepare in writing and return to all councillors, but thank you very much, Councillor Cato, for these questions. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Councillor Petty. Thank you, appreciate it.
I'm afraid this is not an open question time, Councillor Morgan. I'm sorry. Right, we will now move on to item 15, reporting matters referred to the executive. Councillor Cartman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll make this very brief. So at the end of July, we brought a revised budget to the executive that responded to the financial pressures on the council because of the COVID crisis. Those numbers were significant, and because of the amendments we made, this now comes to full council for your approval. In summary, there was about a budget gap of about £30 million, which has been plugged by a combination of savings and government funding, which is coming forward. Details in the report, I won't re-summarise those. The budget gap identified at July was 5.1 million. I think the latest report to exec this month has brought that back down by about £600,000 or £700,000. So that's good news. But as members will appreciate, we continue to monitor a number of risks for the financial year and beyond. I'll end there to be brief and would ask that members accept this report.
Can I have a second, please? Thank you. All those in favour, please show.
Councillor Davis, I think Councillor Ashton wanted to speak, Mr. Chair.
I beg your pardon, I can't see the faces. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Donald. Yes, Chairman. A question to Ashley Cartman. You mentioned in, I think it's paragraph 4 of the resolved, the third tranche, which is mainly for care services. Have you received details of that yet? Because when I spoke to the Minister a month ago, he said that the details were already out. And is that in addition to the grant that we're expecting for fees and charges, which will come out with the autumn statement?
Yes, it is. So there's tranche 3.
Which one?
Sorry, there's so the figures you've got there exclude what you refer to as tranche 3, which we can update you on. I haven't got the figures to hand. And then there was the income losses, which I believe in the last week or 10 days we received final details about how that will be calculated. And we're hoping that will go a large way to bridging the gap. I think we've also had the infection control fund, another 500 million by central government announced. We haven't yet had our allocation of that. And that will play into the fact of how we respond in terms of funding for care homes across the region, for example, and other aspects of demands on council services. But I think, you know,
actually, my question was the details of the third tranche have been out for some time.
Yes.
I don't understand why you haven't actually claimed for it yet then.
I believe we have. I just don't believe they're in the figures here because this report's a summary of the details that came out on the 29th of July.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if you've had an update since, because they have been available for some time.
Yes, we have. And my understanding is that that money is forthcoming and we haven't made any claim that we need to, but I'd have to double check with any officer to make sure that's the case. I wasn't aware of any issues with respect to that money.
Okay.
I'm happy to confirm that to you, Councillor Ashton, if that would help.
Mel
Thank you.
is here in place of Richard Pettis, who can help.
Okay, thank you.
Solicitors Mel Watts.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just to clarify, back to Councillor Ashton, we are in the process of submitting our claim. The deadline for that is the 30th of September. We're just doing the formal calculations and it will be submitted by towards the end of this week, early next week.
Thank you, Mel.
Any further questions?
No further indications to speak, Chairman.
In which case, all those in favour, please show.
Barry, Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Item 16, there are no reports. Item 17, no reports. Item 18, the Avon Fire Authority, Councillor Jacobs. Councillor Jacobs.
Yes, sorry, I was muted there, but I'm not now. I hope everybody's read this report that was provided by our station in Weston-super-Mare. The poignant reminder about this is that the motorcyclist who died in my ward didn't wear any sort of helmet. And that is important for everybody to note. Apart from that, I think the report speaks for itself, and I'm very proud that we're involved in this initiative. Thank you, Chair.
Are there any questions? I move the report be noted. All those in favour, please show. Nothing from the police, nothing from the West of England. Item 19, Public Health Nursing Commissioning Plan, Councillor Bell.
Sorry, I was totally failing to unmute myself there. Apologies, Chairman. As members will know, the Council is responsible for commissioning public health nursing services for children aged 0 to 19, which includes health visitors and school nursing. The current contract, which is with Serona Care and Health, runs until the end of March 2022. And this is setting out the process by which we will look to commission a new service from April 2022 onwards. The funding for this service comes through the Public Health Ring Fence Grant, currently via Public Health England, although given the national changes, we never quite know where the money will come from in the future. I'd particularly draw members' attention to section 4, where we outline the extensive programme of consultation and engagement that's planned for the procurement with stakeholders, service users and scrutiny panels and members. So I'm very happy to propose the recommendation that this commissioning plan is approved so that we can move forward with the detailed procurement planning and preparation.
Have a seconder, please. Thank you. Is there any debate?
Davis seconding.
All those in
Nothing
favour?
in chat, Chairman.
Sorry? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. We now come to item 20, and I'm going to move from the chair that we move into a private session. All those in favour, please show. Right. Now that you are secreted in seclusion, I would suggest that we have a